Okay, so
Hmm.
the time, so I'll do like a short introduction in Spanish, and then I'll kind of welcome you in English, and then we can go on. Yeah, how does it sound?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Great. Bueno, pues es la hora, vamos a empezar. Como esto queda grabado, si alguien se ha perdido esos minutos, pues siempre los puede recuperar. Muchísimas gracias a todos por venir a esta nueva sesión de Power BI Barcelona, donde tenemos un invitado de lujo, pero lujo de verdad, que es Owen, que se conecta desde Nueva Zelanda. Es un tipo al que sigo por Twitter y la verdad es que siempre me ha dado comentarios buenísimos sobre los artículos, o sea que realmente quería que viniera un día a presentar. Estoy súper contento que aceptara. Y nada, vamos a ver lo que nos cuenta sobre los field parameters. Ah, lo he puesto en el chat antes, si alguien no está al caso, si alguien prefiere escuchar en mi traducción simultánea de lo que va a decir, pues hay una reunión de Meet que está publicada ahí en la página del Meetup de este evento. Y a través de allí, pues yo voy a ir traduciendo de la mejor forma que pueda lo que nos va a contar. ¿De acuerdo? Sí. Y a ver, lo pondré otra vez en el chat por lo que pueda ser. A ver si aún lo tengo en el portapapeles. Sí. Es esta reunión de aquí, ¿de acuerdo? Esto lo recomiendo entrar en el móvil y así pues podéis escuchar el audio del Teams o del móvil, el que queráis, ¿de acuerdo? Pues nada, dicho esto, voy a dar la bienvenida a Owen y vamos a empezar la sesión de hoy. Ok, Owen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate you making the time for us. I think it's quite early there in the morning. What time is it now?
Yeah, just on 5 o'clock, 5
What?
a.m. here. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know it was that bad. Sorry about that. I really
That's
apologize.
okay. Yeah. No, I had time to prepare, so that's all right.
Wow. Amazing. So thank you so much. And yeah, let's roll with it. I'm sure you have plenty of stuff to explain.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Bernard, for the introduction, and thanks very much for inviting me to this meetup, this user group, and great to meet everyone, I guess virtually, online. So as I think Bernard, I caught some of the introduction. I'm not a Spanish speaker. I can probably recognize the odd word. So buenas noches, good evening. I think it's about evening your time, isn't it? So great to be here, and I'm going to be my intro slide is at the end. I like to leave that to the end so as not to take up time at the start. But I'm a Power BI consultant based in New Zealand. I work for Agile Analytics. So, but the topic today is, as I think was introduced already, is I've called it dissecting field parameters. So this is all about going into some of the maybe not so obvious things that you around the way field parameters work, taking them apart a little bit, and some things I've discovered as I've played with field parameters during my work and outside work. So if you don't know what field parameters are already, we'll get into that pretty shortly. But if you do know what they are, I hope you do learn something new today at this session. So first thing is, I have essentially this PBIX file or the completed version of this PBIX can be downloaded here, and I think I will just share it directly with Bernard after the session so that you can share it through your group as well. But if you take a picture of this QR code, it should take you to a download of the PBIX, the complete PBIX file, but maybe leave it to the end in case I touch up the file for some reason. But you can already download it now if you're keen to have a copy on your screen as well. So I think I've put this on most pages. This QR code. I understand there's live translation happening, so I hope that works, and I hope I speak clearly enough for the translation system. So I'm happy to take questions during this as well. So please, I might need help from Bernard to make sure I notice the questions if there are questions. But feel free to interrupt, and I can sort of answer as we go or discuss anything that I'm presenting. Right. So let's get into it. So what I'm going to go through here is pretty much as the, I think as was advertised, there's about 5 points that I'm going to cover, and I've got a sort of a page in this Power BI report covering each of those points. So we're starting with, I have a pretty straightforward data set. I'll just switch to the model view. This is, I think, which one did I use? I think this is AdventureWorks. I've just taken a version of AdventureWorks, cut down to just a few tables here. So we have some basic sales data. It's just a very simple model just to help us focus on the field parameters today. So we have sales, we have some product customer dimensions. Those are the main ones I'll talk about. Actually, date as well we'll use during this demonstration. If you haven't already used Tabular Editor, I'll be using Tabular Editor a little bit for some of the things I'm going through. So just keep that in mind. It's a good idea to get. I'll be using Tabular Editor 3, but if you have Tabular Editor 2, you should be able to do everything as well that I'm covering. So let me move right on. So just a quick view of what the data is. We have some sales data dating from, I haven't updated the date, so it's around 2011 to 2013 or so, 2014. So it's a few years of data. We have some product category, a product dimension with category, subcategory. There's some measures already created in here, and we're going to mainly focus on probably just a couple of measures, sales and sales revenue. This is the measure we're looking at here as sort of the main measure. This is just to give you a high-level overview of the data. Let's get into the actual discussion of field parameters. So if you haven't worked with field parameters already, let me just say briefly what field parameters are all about. So just for those that might not have worked so much with them. So field parameters are all around having the ability to select and switch between different columns and different measures used in your report without having to really do much modeling, without having to really change your model apart from creating this field parameter. So to give you a quick example, so I've got a matrix here, I think. Yes, a matrix just showing sales revenue with no dimensions. So what I'm going to do first of all is just to show what does a field parameter do very quickly before we get into the detail. Suppose that we want to look at product sales by color. Okay, we could put color on our axis, and we're looking at sales revenue across all time by color. Suppose we wanted to give our users the option to switch between, well, they want to look at product category, or they want to look at color or something else. So we could manually change the dimension category, or I could switch. You could set up separate visuals for each possible attribute that you want to include on the axis of your visual, maybe model, whatever it might be. But field parameters let you build in essentially a filter where you can select the field to use, as the end user who's viewing the report can select the field to use. So let me just show you to start with how we create a very basic field parameter. Then I'll get into this slide's topic, which is the minimum requirements for a field parameter and how we can do it, how it actually works behind the scenes. So let's suppose we want a product field parameter with a few columns from products. So we'll go to modeling, new parameter, fields. And this takes us to this dialog box where, make sure we're on fields, not numeric range. So I'll call this let's call this product field parameter. And I'm going to choose maybe 3 columns. I'm going to choose color, going to choose category and subcategory. There we go. So basically I've dragged and dropped 3 columns to act as fields within this field parameter. And I'm going to add slicer to the page so that we can just select from this field parameter right now. So this is the built-in method for creating a field parameter. So immediately you'll see a table has appeared down here. By the way, normally I would zoom in with Zoom It, but it's been causing some issues in at least lately in Windows. So I'm probably going to avoid using Zoom It. It made my screen go black a few times and I couldn't recover. So hopefully it's readable. But I'll talk through as we go. Hopefully we don't get lost. So okay, so we've created this field parameter, and the way that you would use it as a report builder is you would take this, you've got this field parameter table with 1 visible column at the moment, drag that field parameter into your visual, and then make selections from, I'm just going to zoom out there, from the slicer here. If I want to see color, I select color. If I want to see category, subcategory, and so on. So the end user viewing the report can switch between these and can actually choose multiple if they want to. Subcategory and category. I've probably done them the wrong way around, so we should do category and subcategory. Yeah, so you can pick and choose which fields you want included on the visual within as a consumer of the report, which is quite cool in itself, quite a neat feature. So if you haven't played with these before, that's the gist of what field parameters do, and they can do both. They can handle both columns and measures. So anywhere in a visual that has columns or has measures, you can in the field wells, you basically place the field parameter, and it Power BI will update the fields. So here I've got product field parameter, but it's actually picking up these 2, category and subcategory, that I've selected over here. Okay, so let's get into what is this first topic is a bit about what's actually going on behind the scenes and how what is actually making a field parameter work. So if we look at the table view for this field parameter, we can see we actually have a table of 3 columns that's been auto-generated for us. And we can see also that there's a DAX expression that's been used to create this table. So a default field parameter includes these 3 columns, both the basic name of the object, of whether it's a column or measure. It includes this special column, which is the fully qualified name of that column or measure. So it's got the, in this case, product subcategory, so the table and column name in the fully qualified syntax. And we've also got an ordering column. And you'll note that these 2 columns are hidden. So Microsoft has tried to design field parameters so that the complexity is hidden from the users. They really just see, when you create one, you just see this column. But actually what makes a field parameter work is actually this column here that refers to has the fully qualified column reference. So interestingly, all it's required, if you really strip it all back, all that is required for a field parameter to work is this column here. You can actually create one that just has this column. And it's a bit ugly and it doesn't sort correctly, but you can get a field parameter working like that. So as an example, I'm going to do that right now just to show you that it's possible. So if I'm going to take this DAX expression, I'm going to create a new table. So this is a calculated table in this case. I'll call it product field parameter minimal. And what we're going to do is get rid of everything except the reference to the columns. This name of function is again, it's kind of a convenience. So what it does is it translates a column or measure reference into the actual text name. The reason that's useful is that if you rename columns or rename measures, they automatically the name automatically changes in the field parameter. We'll see shortly how when you create one through different means, say through Power Query, you lose that, you won't have that name of function. So you'd have to be more careful if you create them using other methods. But yeah, that's basically the purpose of that function, is to translate the reference into a text name. So you'll see that we've ended up with a single column table. Now, right now, and it just has the column name value. So that's the other thing. When we use the interface to create this field parameter, the columns are automatically renamed. So let's, for this new one we've created, let's just rename it to, I'll call it product. I'll just call it product field parameter. Let's just keep it simple. So I've just renamed that directly here. We could have done it in the DAX expression as well, but I've just done it here by renaming the column. So there's actually a bit more we need to do to get this field parameter working. So if I try to, let's say I get rid of the one I just created, I'll do that. So I'm going to change my slicer to point to the new one that I just created. And I'm going to change my visual to also use the new field parameter I just created. It's not quite a field parameter yet, but it's almost a field parameter. So you'll see that it's pretty ugly naming, and it's actually not working because all the values basically are unfiltered. The measure values on the visual are clearly unfiltered. They're all the same value. So what's the other thing that needs to happen? I've put some notes here, actually. So we've got the fully qualified column measure references. We've got that part, which is this column of values. We actually need one more thing, which is some properties added to this column. So this is how you set it up yourself. If you're not using the Power BI interface, you actually need to use Tabular Editor for this. So I've already opened Tabular Editor from this model, so I'll just switch to it here. So I'm looking for my product field parameter minimal is the one I just created. And to make it work, what you need to do is find the column, in this case, product field parameter, and go to your properties of that column and look for extended properties. And we need to add an extended property. We add a JSON property. Let's get the naming right here. We call it parameter metadata. Just going to paste that in. So the name is parameter metadata, and it has this special JSON expression. The value is version :3 kind :2. So as soon as we add that, go OK. So we've now got this extended property defined here. Has the correct name and correct value. Let's save that back to the model. So I'll save in Tabular Editor. And if we switch back to Power BI Desktop, we can see now the icon has changed. It's got this little question mark indicating that's the special field parameter indicator. So what should now happen is once we change a couple of things, this field parameter will work. So one other thing you have to do in your visual to make sure it's set up correctly is when you include a field parameter field on a visual, if it's one you've created yourself, it may not do this automatically, but you right-click and choose Show Values of Selected Field. So that switches it to showing the actual values of the category color or subcategory. So now that we've done that, if we filter this category, color, subcategory. It is working as expected. Again, it's kind of ugly because we've just got the table and column name. Obviously, that's not nice to look at, which is why a normal field parameter includes a different name, an additional column with a kind of a cleaned up name. But the purpose of this demonstration was just to show you actually what is required to make a field parameter work. So now that we've created a bare bones field parameter, you could add columns to it to make it into a nicer field parameter. So if that's actually if we want to do that quickly now, we could just add some columns. I'll just do this with DAX as a demonstration. So if I add a calculated column, let's actually do it in the original DAX expression. It's a bit easier. So so we're kind of rebuilding what the default method creates. So if I add this column in, so if you haven't seen this syntax before, the bracket, basically whatever's between the brackets is a row. So the curly braces define a table, yeah, and the brackets, contents of the brackets are one row of your table. Let's give it the order as well. So I'm kind of, let's give it 1, 2, 3 there. What's going to happen is I'm going to need to rename these columns. I'll just choose some arbitrary names. Let's just jump back to tabular editor to make sure that now the field that we need, product field parameter, needs to have, it's actually lost the setting because I redefined the table. So let's just add that back in. Parameter metadata and version 3 kind 2. And the other thing that field parameters have when you set them up with the interface is the name field, in this case, the nicely formatted name, has another property set, which is group by columns. So we can do that manually. We set this product field to group by product field parameter. That's a special property that ensures that when you place product field on a visual, it automatically brings along with it the actual field parameter, product field parameter in this case. And we can also define sort by. We can do that here or in Power BI Desktop. So I'll sort both of these fields by order, and we'll actually hide, just Control I, hide columns in tabular editor. Hide those two columns, and we'll just leave product field visible. So I'll save this back to the model. Now this looks pretty much like a default field parameter, and what we can now do is instead use the cleaned up column in our, and we actually have to, yeah, on the slicer, you have to make sure you have show selected field. On the visual, you have show values of selected field. Little confusing at first, but yeah. But now it's working like a normal field parameter now that we've set all those properties. So why did I go through all that? Well, that was really just probably for the more curious, and I'm sure all of you are curious people. I like to understand how things work underneath the surface, and I think it's good to know this. So if you sometimes need to create something a field parameter that's not quite following the default settings, at least you know which components are needed to make it work, and you can maybe modify it slightly, add additional columns and things like that, as long as you've got the core requirements, which is these two points, that extended properties and that column with column references. Cool. So let's move on from that one. That was kind of the sort of the slightly technical introduction. Let's get into some other things we can do with field parameters. So I just see a question: why version 3 kind 2? The short answer is I don't know. It's something I'm guessing Microsoft has. Yeah, to me, it's just an arbitrary JSON expression that defines a field parameter. I'd have to ask someone at Microsoft why it is this. Maybe there's some other settings they're coming up with, that different version, different kind, that will give different behaviors in the future. I actually, be interested to know, but I don't know. Sorry. And I also don't know when they're going out of preview. I see a question on that. Soon, I hope. Yeah. I keep forgetting they're still in preview because I use them all the time. Anyway, sort of most clients I work with are happy to use them. They're a relatively safe feature, I guess. Cool. So I'm just going to jump ahead now to. So what we're going to do is actually create a field parameter with. Now that we know how they work, we can actually create one with Power Query as opposed to with DAX. Why would we want to do that? Well, let's imagine your suppose that your customer table, you're adding some columns, maybe adding or removing columns, but you want all those columns to be available in the field parameter. So what we're going to do is create a customer field parameter. So with all the columns of the customer table with Power Query. So if we go into, I'm going to go here into transform data. And so we want a field parameter that includes, just wait for this. Yep. All of these columns of customer. So what we can do is, so I'll take my customer query. I'm going to reference that. And let's call this customer field parameter. So we're going to use, I'm going to take the column names of this table. So create a step here. So I'll use the function, let's zoom in a bit here. Table.column names of, so we now have a list of the column names, which is basically what we need for our field parameter. I'll just very quickly use the interface to convert that to a table. I won't do it. I'll just do this quickly. So let's, we want that to be type text. Let's just call this customer field, and let's add a column. Can actually do this from, let's do two things actually. Let's, I'll use this nifty feature. So I want to do, because I need the fully qualified reference to the column, I'm going to create, I just used column from examples. So it's a convenient way to do it. It's come up with the right code there. So let's go OK. And we don't want to call it merged. We want to call that customer field. Let's call it customer field parameter. Doesn't, name is not too important. And let's add an index column as well. And we'll call that index column customer field order. Yeah, cool. So we now have all the components of our field parameter, but we've done it with Power Query. It's the only difference. Of course, this, we're relying on the table name not changing. So that's another reason to use the name of version in DAX, is because Table names can change, column names can change, and that's a bit more robust. But if we're confident our table name won't change, this is okay as well. It's not too hard to maintain. So let's now load this table and close and apply. And hopefully yes, here it is here. Just check it's loaded correctly. Customer field parameter, great. So we need to go through that same process of back in tabular editor. So I'm going to just quickly change those settings. So these two columns I want hidden. Customer field needs to group by customer field parameter. It also needs to sort by customer field order. You can also sort the field parameter column by the order column. That's how they do it by default. And customer field parameter, we need to set those extended properties as well. So we go in there again. You could write a script in tabular editor to do this, of course. But I'll just do it manually for now. Cool. Yep. So we've set that one up. So that's correct. That's group by of the field parameter column. Just make sure. Yep. Okay. Save that back to the model. So now our customer field parameter should be good to go. So let's check that it's working. Customer field parameter. Let's put customer field on the slicer. And that's good. It's showing what we want it to show. It's showing all the columns of the customer table. And let's put on this visual on the y-axis, we'll put the customer field. And all right, it's showing customer key, which is a bit crazy, but yeah, now it's all working as we would expect, switching between fields here. So now the beauty of this method is that, okay, I decide that I'm going to remove some columns, or maybe I'm going to add, I'm going to add a column to my customer table, city, state, province. Let's go with city and state, province. Let's just add that as a column. Cool. So we've added a new column that should now be picked up by the field parameter. We'll just verify that that appears. Yes, there it is. Cool. Yep. So all working as intended. So especially during development phases, when your model is changing, it can be quite handy to build a field parameter this way, if that's something you're using in your report. So yeah, I think it's good to have this in your toolbox of, 99% of the time I would use the native Power BI interface to create these, but those odd occasions where I need something a bit different, I would maybe look at Power Query or writing some different DAX expression for the table, because you can always adjust the properties of those columns to make it work. Cool. So that's the end of this example, just showing how we can create a field parameter with Power Query and have it a little bit dynamic. Great. So I'll move right along. The next little topic is controlling the order of field selections. So by default, when you have a field parameter and you make selections, Power BI actually remembers the order of those selections when it adds fields to the visual. So when you're, let's use, yes, sorry, I'll just answer that question. Yes, so the metadata of columns is maintained. So all these settings, there was a period where in all my testing, these properties of the columns that we set in Tabular Editor, they are always maintained when you refresh in the Power BI service. They are also maintained when you refresh in desktop as well. There was a period where the desktop was sometimes breaking those properties between refreshes. That's been fixed for a while now. So if you refresh in the service or desktop, these properties should all be preserved. So yes, so it's pretty robust. I mean, I think still group by columns is not. I did inquire with Microsoft about the issue that I was having in desktop, and they kind of said, "Oh, you've done it with Tabular Editor. It's not officially recognized as a Power BI feature, so they wouldn't do anything about it at the time." But since then, they fixed it. So hopefully, we can control these settings in Power BI Desktop itself as well. But at least we've got Tabular Editor for the time being. So I guess that's the thing with field parameters. It's as someone mentioned, it's still officially in preview. So always be careful and just keep an eye on things that might break when you use them. But I think they're pretty safe in practice. Haven't really had any issues myself, apart from that little refresh issue a while ago. Right. So let's. So the order of field selection. So let's go back to our, let's choose our product field parameter. Yeah, let's go with that one. So I'll go with our original product field parameter. Let's put this on a slicer. So we've just got color, category, subcategory. And I'm going to put that same field parameter on this. Let's turn that around. Yeah. So you'll notice when all of your fields are selected, obviously you've made no filter selection, all fields show up in the visual. Now, suppose I select color. Great, I see color on the visual. Okay, I'm going to control-click, select subcategory. Subcategory shows up next. What if I did it the other way around? If I choose subcategory first, then color. Okay, they showed up in the order I selected them. Now, sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't want that. So it depends on your reporting situation, whether you want the order to be based on the selection or not. So what you can do, if you want the fields to always show up in the same order, determined by the order by the sort order of the fields. So rather than depending on the user's order of selection. So what you can do to enforce that is you can add a copy of the field column and use that instead. So what I mean by that is if we go to our product field parameter, let's just add a column with calculator column with DAX. So we're going to make a copy of this column. I'll call it product field parameter copy equals, just the original column. It's just a copy of the original product field parameter column. Now, so this column is still going to filter the field parameter, so we can use it on the slicer instead. And let's just switch our slicer to product field parameter copy. I think that one. Let's check that's the right one. Yeah. So what happens now is when you select, I'll select category color. You'll notice the order is color category, which is the default sort by order. If I choose subcategory color, it comes up as color subcategory. If I choose all three, it's color category subcategory, regardless of which order I select them. One thing I should have done was set my copy sort order sort by to the order field. So now we know it's a bit clearer. That order will always match that order. Category, subcategory, or subcategory category. It still shows up as category, subcategory. So that's just a little Oh, Chris, my naughty calculated columns. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Look, if you want, yeah. So if I were trying to avoid calculated columns, I would consider adding them into the DAX expression, or even going up to Power Query and creating my field parameter there and avoiding the whole issue of calculated columns. Yeah, thank you. No, I get it. It's a joke. I'm pretty relaxed about calculated columns. It's yeah, all good. So yeah, just a little tip that sometimes you want the order a certain way, sometimes you want the order flexible. So you can control it by adding this column. It's just an interesting. Now, I guess that's something that could break or could change given that field parameters are in preview. Yeah, so just it works at the moment. It's not documented as far as I know, this ordering thing. So so I think see a couple of questions. Okay, field parameters don't work with drill through. Okay, yeah, I'll have to think about that one. Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about that, but that could well, yeah. That's an interesting one to think about. Yeah, and the Power Query version of field parameter. Okay, so they would order. What order would the field parameters? They would whatever. I think the order that they show up. If I go with my default, my original field parameter column, whether it's Power Query or DAX, I think they will obey the whatever the sort by. In this case, it's the order column. So if there's no sort by column, so at the moment it's set to the order column. If there's no sort by column set, I think it would obey the. In fact, we can test that. It would obey if we just sort it by itself. It would obey the alphabetical category, color, subcategory. Yeah, I think it would obey the sort by order defined by either whichever column is set to sort by, I believe. So if you don't set a sort by column, it'll just sort alphabetically by default. Pretty sure. Might need to test that one out. That's a good. That was my assumption. Yeah. So yeah, just a little point there. But I've had sometimes in a matrix you want the columns ordered a certain way, but in kind of a freeform visual you want the columns in any order that the user chooses. So you have that flexibility. You can yeah. So not it's a nice little option there. Okay, let's I'm going to move along now. So this is an interesting one. What if you want nothing selected on your field parameter? So normally by default, you can't select nothing on a slicer. So if you don't make a selection, let's use our product field parameter here on this slicer. And sorry, yep. All right, yep. Let's reorder this. So by default, there's no way to make no selections. So if I don't select anything, it's the same as selecting everything. Even though I select all and deselect, it goes back to everything. So how can I have no selection? Well, it turns out that you can tweak your field parameter to have an invalid option, and that will actually create no selection or have the effect of being no selection if you select that invalid option. So what we're going to do, let's go to our product field parameter. In fact, what I'm going to do is, yeah, let's just, let's create a new one actually. So let's go back here. So we'll put category, color, subcategory again, just to, we'll call it product field parameter V2 maybe. We don't need a slicer at the stage. Yep. So V2. All right, so where's our V2? Yes, this is V2. Let's just place this on the slicer to start with. How this is a bit narrow. I'll just make sure I select the right one. Yes, that one, and we want that field. And yep, there we go. Yep, that's showing the right thing. And on our visual, we also use the V2. This one, yes, that's the right one. Cool, so that's working as intended. Now, how do we add the no selection option? Well, we basically go, what I'm going to do is add an option at the top here. It's called no selection. All right, and what we basically do is we can give it any invalid, for this column here, any invalid value will do. So I'm just going to call it no selection again. Let's put -1 as our sort just to put it first. And that should. So what we can now do is if we select that, then we have no field selected on the visual. We can still select the other fields, of course. But if we add no selection, it basically has no effect. So if we just select no selection, it's basically having nothing, no valid field is selected. So you get an empty, essentially an empty selection for your field parameter. Now, from a user point of view, this is a little bit ugly. It'd be nice if they didn't actually have to click no selection, because it's kind of confusing if you choose no selection and something else. You end up just with that field. How can we do that? So you can do a little bit of tidying up and a little bit of, I'll just make that wider. So, yep. So you can tidy things up a bit so that you can hide that no selection so it's selected by default effectively. So what we can do is, first of all, on the slicer, you hide, let's put a filter on the slicer. Oops. We're just going to hide no selection. So just make it effectively not visible. Now, obviously, it's not working yet. What we now want to do is we can, there's a couple of ways of achieving this, but one, I'm just going to grab, got a measure pre-written over here that, no, I'm going to write it. Okay, I actually wrote it for a different field parameter, but I'll do it here. So let's, so we're going to create a little measure. I'm going to call it product field parameter flag. So it basically, this measure detects if no selection is selected, and because this is product, I actually, when I was testing this out, I did it on customer, but I'll just call it product now. I think that's the right, yep. So, and let's copy that down there. Okay, so what this is doing is it's determining if no selection has been made overall, all selected in the current whatever context we're in, the context of the overall visual that we're in. In this case, it will be the matrix visual. We'll get to that in a second. But so is no selection one of the options selected? And then it looks at what is the current field. We use max for technical reasons. We can't use selected value directly on a field parameter column. But basically, work out if no selection has been selected, check what the current field is, and then if no selection has been selected, or return value of 1 if the current field is no selection, because we want, in that, if no selection is selected, we want to keep no selection. Otherwise, return 1 if it's not no selection. In other words, if no selection has not been selected, this is getting confusing, the more confusing the more I say it, but if no selection has not been selected, then we want to allow values that are not no selection. The copy of this file for download, I think, will have the customer version of this, but it's the same logic. So what you do is create that measure. Then on the actual visual, where you are looking at this, where you're visualizing your measures, we place a visual level filter on, in this case, product parameter, field parameter v2. So place a visual level filter, and one way of doing it is you do a top 1 based on that measure. It's a slightly tricky way of doing it, but what it basically says is it'll return the values of the field parameter where the measure returns 1, which happens to be the top value. This will only work if you have other top end filters on your slice on your visual. This would not work. But in this case, it does work. So basically, because that no selection is hidden, it's basically hiding. It is still selected, but it's just hidden. So it has the effect of when we don't select anything, there's no fields there. But as soon as we select something, then those fields appear. So if we clear the slicer, it goes back to nothing being selected. That one's, yeah, so this is a little bit tricky. I think to, I suggest having a play with this one, but basically that hidden value on the slicer is selected, and that is then applied via that DAX measure up there to exclude these 3 values. So in a roundabout way, it, from an end user point of view, it has the effect of turning no selection into no selection. So thanks for your GIF there. Thank you. So from a user interface point of view, I think it's quite nice to do it this way. So you can kind of just add and remove fields like that. So definitely download the PBIX, have a look at that. There might be different ways of setting that up. That's sort of the way I did it, but I'm sure there's other variations on that you could try out. Because field parameters can be filtered by DAX or other modeling methods using relationships, so you can do a lot of things, interesting things by filtering field parameters. Yeah, great. So I'll move on to the last little example here, which is kind of an extension of, or another scenario where you might filter field parameters based on some conditions. So in this example, I want to apply rules so that I've got a visual sales by, actually there's nothing on the axis, but what I want to do is if the user selects a single year, so they just select 2013, I want to see months on this axis. And if they select a longer period, I want to see years on the axis. So basically the rule is if a single year is filtered, show months, otherwise show years. So we're going to do this a slightly different way. So we're going to, there's a visual, you may or may not have encountered this visual called pre-selected slicer. It's a visual that lets you have a slicer whose selections are determined by measures, in other words, DAX expressions. I think this functionality is coming out. It's on the roadmap from the core visuals, but But for now, we can do it with this custom visual pre-selected slicer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, I've already loaded this custom visual actually. So this is the pre-selected slicer here. And so to get a pre-selected slicer to work, we'll get to that in a second. Let's create the field parameter first. So I'm going to create a new field parameter for month and year. So let's call it a date field parameter. And I'm going to put, we're going to put calendar year, and start of month is basically a first of the month column. So that will do for month. I won't add the slicer just yet. And within the DAX code, I'm just going to rename that one to year. Let's just call it year and month, just for simplicity. So if I wanted to, I could just put that field parameter onto this visual. And right now it's year. Let's put in fact, this year and month, it's got both selected. Let's set up this pre-selected slicer now so that we can get it to dynamically switch those. So one thing with the pre-selected slicer is if you download the demo PBIX that comes with the pre-selected slicer, one thing you have to do is you have to have a dummy true-false column sitting in your model. Something to do with how the slicer operates. I actually don't know the technicalities, but you need this column, and you need both true and false to be available values in the filter context when using the slicer. So, and you put it on this dirty status field. Well, it's a bit of a weird name, but I think it's to do with detecting whether a selection has been made on the slicer. Someone probably out there can explain it. The developer of the visual, I guess. But so you make sure you have that dirty status field on to start with. Then you have to create a pre-selection measure that is a true, false, or Boolean measure that determines what options on the slicer should be selected. So we'll put first of all, we'll put our field parameter onto the field, the date field parameter. Then we'll write a quick measure. Create a measure here. So I'm calling it date field parameter flag. And so first of all, it determines what is the current field. Are we on month or year? So that's, I think I've got the right column. Yep. Again, I use max for technical reasons because you can't use selected value on a field parameter column directly. Then we check if there's been a single year filtered using has1 filtered. Then we want to return true if the current field is month. Otherwise, we want to return true if the current field is year. So it's basically, and you could come up with whatever logic you like. This is just what I'm using as an example. So let's create that measure. Then we basically place that measure onto the visual. Just drag it on as the pre-selection field on the pre-selected slicer. So now my slicer's choosing to do something a bit weird. I'm going to create a new pre-selected slicer. Something's gone funny there. So let's put that field on again. Sorry, let's do it on here. Okay, so we'll put date field parameter. We'll put dirty status as dummy, and we'll put pre-selection as, yeah, there we go. Working now. So you'll see that year is selected. God, I need to pay homage to the demo gods. Quite right. So you'll see. So basically, I've selected multiple years, and we have year. Oops, sorry. if I select just a single, let's just clear the slicer and select a single year. Now we have month. So select another year and it goes back to year. So now obviously for this type of scenario, you might well want to hide this slicer. Now the pre-selected slicer is a little bit buggy in that whether it's a known or intended or not, when you hide it, it doesn't actually function correctly. So you can just make it really small and move it out of the way somewhere, hide it or turn the colors to white, hide it behind another visual. So the user doesn't need to see it, but it'll still work as intended. So yeah, I've done that in the past, just hide it behind something else or make it really small, tucked away in a corner, and it won't bother anyone. Yeah, so obviously on the pre-selected slicer, you can make manual selections, and then it ends up, you'll see this indicator here that it needs to be reset. So if you want that option, you can make it visible as long as the users know they have to reset it later on to get the functionality back. Cool, yeah. So yeah, pre-selected slicer with field parameters gives some interesting options around automatically switching field parameters. So, and you could have all sorts of logic, more complicated things around, if you select department A, then let's view it by customer. If you select department B, let's view it by product, that kind of thing. So it could be any sort of logic you like. And this functionality should be coming to the core slicer visuals sooner rather than later. It's been mentioned at least one of those LinkedIn posts from the core visuals team. So yeah, that's basically that's the end of the demo. I see we're just on an hour since we started, aren't we? So not too bad. If you want to download, I'll just mention again, this QR code will take you to a file, basically the file I was working on here, very similar. I'd be interested, here's some of my details. So I'm a consultant at Agile Analytics, which is based in Australia, but I myself am based in New Zealand. It's my blog there, and you can find me on LinkedIn, or I'll keep calling it Twitter until someone forces me to call it something else. Yeah, thank you. And
I don't know. I mean, that was just amazing. I mean, is there anything else, or you were in the middle of something? I don't know. Because we are all speechless. I mean, I had trouble continuing the translation because I was speechless because of the demo. I was like, what did he just do? I was like, wait a minute. It's way unexpected. One of the things you did. It was like, what? I mean, yeah, I don't know. I at first I was like a bit like, really? Is there so much to field parameters to fill a whole hour just tricking them? And I see that actually you could probably go on for another one, but that was really, really amazing. And I think we'll all go back and watch it over and over again, because those are very nice tricks that you pulled. So really
Thank
controlling
you.
the order, and also, all this dynamic thing. I was thinking maybe the dynamic, this could also work somehow with calculation groups.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Oh,
because you can filter them. Yeah, totally.
Like that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think.
I come nicely for a blog post. Yeah, you see, I mean, this is something I did. So I see the session and then I write a blog post or something that maybe this is possible as well. And
yeah, go for it. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah. No, I hope the translation. I don't know how that all worked, but
well,
I hope it worked okay. Does it? Yeah.
I think most people have a good understanding of English because there was not that many people joining on the Spanish one, but you never know. Also, once it's recorded, then people from all over the place might decide to see the Spanish version, or maybe both, just in case. Who knows? So this is really a must-see session for everyone. I see that some people, I think I saw Sue joining earlier. maybe she will try to hire you for her own user group. And
cool. Yeah. I didn't keep track of. Yeah. Okay.
She has really only starts going to her user group. Yeah. Wow. I mean, is there anybody?
Kane. All right, Kane. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh no, that's great. No, thanks for the opportunity. It was pleasure. A pleasure to present a bit of some interesting stuff to go through. Yeah.
And I'll have to somehow make you get one of these small stickers we have from all the speakers and all the members of Power BI Barcelona. So the next event I see somebody joining from Australia or something, I'll say, okay, go and find Owen and give him that.
Yeah, that's great. That's fine. No, thank you very much. Yeah.
Really nice.
No, great. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, if there's any other, I don't know if I missed any questions, but if there's any others,
they can also find you. Yeah, well, I think just Fernando said that, really, field parameters are a way to have a clean report because they have so much functionality baked in, and clean for the user and clean for the developer as well. So you don't have a bunch of bookmarks and stuff like that and layered visuals.
Exactly.
So I really like them a lot as well. Okay.
Yeah, really handy feature. Yeah.
So we're on time. So I'm going to thank you once again for joining. Muchísimas gracias a todos también por venir. Yo creo que ha sido una sesión muy bestia lo que nos ha enseñado. And I don't know, we might be doing that over again some other time. I really, really liked having you today. Okay.
Great to meet everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Bennett. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.